I know you got a lot of slack for this. A portion of CC fans are from the dark side.
I hate the fact, looking back on it, that I included that one 5-word sentence. It put everybody in one big bucket, when the reality is it's a terribly small sample size. They're just very loud.
You're someone who has stood by this ankle injury is a big reason why she's not back.
Groin was fine a while ago. It's the ankle. And I don't think they still have complete clarity on a solution or what they're doing. Based on the officiating, I can have a good idea of how the game will be called and therefore how the game will react. I did not like the crew at all in the last game. I was stunned by those three being included. And what fans may not realize is the individual who Fever don't like the most was the alternate official.
Oh, wow. Scott Agness, welcome to the Courtside Club.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
No, I appreciate you jumping on. You have provided us with so much information this season. And so I feel like it's only right to get you on. We're nearing the end of the season. The Fever are still in it, incredibly enough, with all of the wild things that have been going on. You've been covering it relentlessly. So I appreciate that. You're just getting back from Vegas.
Yeah. And of course, I go through O'Hare. Always the worst decision, right? Like, I had a 4-hour delay. And by the way, though, I use that as an instructive lesson. This is how WNBA used to be traveling, right? They would have a travel day and it would be a full travel day. There's only one, maybe two nonstop flights from Vegas. And so that experience is what these players used to be dealing with until these chartered flights last year.
Yeah, it's crazy how much the league has changed in the past 2 years. And you've been covering the WNBA and the NBA for much longer. What's the biggest thing that you've noticed in these past 2 seasons covering the W? And specifically,
for me, it's
the
just
Fever.
got to be interest level. The fact that, and this all started obviously with Caitlin, but it became the point where I would have buddies who I didn't even know followed the Fever would be texting me criticisms about the officials or coaching. They were locked in the middle of a second quarter in a game in May. That's how right away I felt, okay, this is different. This is real. This is relevant. More people are doing that, in fact, than during Pacer games. And that's when it really hit me. So to me, it was the interest level, the way in which it is consumed now. And then also a lot of it, too, has become the way in which many people have to learn about basketball and learn about how teams in this league and sports in general work. Injury reports obviously have become a major thing we've had this season, unfortunately. And so much of that I feel like is an instructive thing as well for many of the fans out there.
Yeah, I mean, the league in itself, and I've always said this, the WNBA is actually set up perfectly for fans because they're still not to the level of games as the NBA. So NBA is 82 games. Not every game actually matters. You can act like it does, it really doesn't. At this point in time, though, with the W, it's almost like the perfect amount of games where every game still matters. It's a small amount of teams. There's only a small amount of that small amount that make the playoffs. So it kind of makes everything more high stakes. And it's actually easier, in my opinion, for fans to follow the W. It's less players, less teams. It's easier to get so excited about these little moments, these matchups, the rivalries, all the things. Then I don't know if you feel the same way or if that's a good thing for new fans that are coming into the league, or it's kind of wait, this is really different from the NBA and I still don't understand it.
So I think the first challenge, and this will always be the case, is it's going against summer, vacations, kids out of school, great weather outside. Oftentimes before this new era of Fever basketball, it was people choosing between being outside on a nice sunny day or on the lake or something versus going to a Fever game. And now that the decision is more tilted towards basketball, I think. But I think that's the number one challenge this league faces. And then on top of that, I'm very curious how expansion works. Because at some point, you're going to reach a level of talent that just is not there. And I've been a big proponent, and I don't think we'll see it, unfortunately, but we'll see, is you got to expand the rosters. And it's not even from the injury challenged like Fever right now. It's so many different teams around the league. Dallas, for example, I think LA had a time when they brought in all these hardship players. You shouldn't have to do it for weeks on end. And more to that, how much better off would these teams be if they had a player that had been with them through training camp, had maybe areas to grow, but could do that for months on end and could be a practice player. And maybe, look, chartered flights, all they're paying is a hotel is the added cost, right? Have them travel, have them be around the team. So when the inevitable time comes, that player can step up. And from the player standpoint, why wouldn't they want an additional player or two at least per roster to get paid? But adding at least 24 roster spots this upcoming season will be very interesting. We still do not know how an expansion draft will work. And then we already know 3 other teams coming down the pipe later on. So there are some challenges there as well. But and you did touch on rivalries. I don't think there are really any rivalries in the WNBA that I can truly think of, but it's not just limited to the WNBA. I think that's something as a collective in sports, probably in the last decade plus, maybe starting with the LeBron move, right, from Cleveland to Miami, where fans in the new generation are following players. They're following individuals. Maybe they love a head coach less so than teams. And so part of that, and maybe to the fact that all these players grew up playing with one another a lot more, so they're familiar with one another. They can DM each other, get their numbers on social media, a lot more connected. Therefore, I don't know. Doesn't it feel like there are far less rivalries anymore?
I feel like the rivalries and however you want to categorize it, it is like it's player to player rivalries. It's not like dynasties like Lakers Celtics.
Yeah.
Like that rivalry is I think is actually dead at this point. People aren't getting up to like, yeah, we got to see these two teams go up against one another. You know, you have a little bit with like Boston, New York, a little bit in the NBA, but still, and I think it's definitely player driven at this point, and it's more of the storylines with all of it. Which is cool. And I think some of those rivalries have really helped grow the league, and people are really, you see the numbers, and you especially saw that last year. But I thought it was detrimental when you have the Chicago Sky and the Fever rivalry from last season because they were carrying over this Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese thing into their pro seasons. But then this season, you give them 5 games, and clearly the Fever are a much better team, like, despite all these injuries or not. The Chicago Sky were not good this year. So it ended up being 5 games of blowouts, which isn't that great. And with that, I think we saw maybe 2 of the games where both Caitlin and Angel played.
Right.
Unfortunately, both of them have had injuries as well. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, like here's this rivalry that's probably going to be a sweep by the Fever because it's not like the team matchup isn't it, but I don't think that's going to be the same thing for next season. I think they're going to have to move on from that manufactured rivalry.
What I've called that one is a story of convenience. It's for the casual fan that came in with those two and maybe knows of Angel because of Caitlin and whatever. It's strictly from a team standpoint. There is no rivalry. There has never been a rivalry. I've been with around this team since 2003. You never looked forward to playing to Chicago. You never looked forward to that matchup or were nervous by that. I would say way back, there was probably some tension with the Detroit Shock and maybe later with the Connecticut Sun. But none of those exist anymore in terms of those rivalries. And that's unfortunate. I would love to get back to that spot. But I laugh now when these leagues create rivalry weeks and it takes 5-10 minutes to figure out, wait, what's the connection here?
Yeah. It's normally like 2 players where somebody committed a hard foul on the other and now they're matching up against one another again.
Or their former team or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. I do want to talk about the injuries a little bit, though. I want to start actually with Damiris Dantas. Do you have any updates there? Because she did not travel to Vegas. Okay.
Sorry, yeah, unfortunately nothing yet. I thought it was notable she didn't travel to Vegas. That tells me right away they knew she was not going to be good enough to play in a matter of a couple days. And then why put that wear and tear in that travel since it is so substantial and getting out of your environment, the dry, I don't know. That made total sense. The concern now is it's been 2 weeks since that incident happened in practice. And generally speaking, I don't know her history of concussions, but usually within 2 weeks you are back. So recording this a day before game 3, I would expect for her to be able to ease her way back in. But then I recognize, look, she hadn't played competitive basketball in a couple weeks, probably losing some game rhythm and game shape. But also I recognize, look, the Fever, they need anybody they can get at this point. So I would hope to see her for at least one of these games.
I mean, head injuries are one of those things I think you sit out, like that's nothing to mess around with at all. And so I was concerned hearing that she would be out for this long. Also, I'm wondering, do you know what exactly happened in practice? Because to my knowledge, like normally at this point in time in the season, no teams are really going that hard in practice. Like you're not trying to expend your body anymore. You're not going like hard 5v5 type of moments. Do you know what happened?
I do not know exactly what did, and you are right. Absolutely, generally the last 2-3 months. I guess that's NBA last 2 or 3 months, but WNBA probably the last month or so. One, you really don't have much time to do so, and then whenever you're out there, yeah, you're just trying to get shots up. You're going over the scout. You're probably adding in some new plays. But if you remember, the Fever lucked out with their end of season schedule. Now they pay for it obviously during the regular season, but whereas many teams played till I think that Thursday, I think the Fever were done on Tuesday if I remember right. They had 4 days between games, so I think they took a day off, could go hard for a day or two, and then ease in to the playoffs. That was an important time for them to kind of be less predictable, is what Stephanie White was saying. And so it did not surprise me that they scrimmaged or probably went up and down against the practice players for at least one day during that stretch. But no, we don't know exactly what, other than Stephanie saying that she took, it was some kind of hit in practice on that Thursday.
Yeah, that's what we were hearing in the pressers. But well, I hope that she is back. Whether it's limited minutes or kind of getting in rhythm. And that's something with playoffs, like you hear it in all sports, like playoff basketball it's a different game, and the speed is different. The physicality is different. I also want to clear something up because the rumors have been so rampant about Caitlin Clark being able to get back.
Yeah.
Can I read to you the newest thing that's kind of been circulating around WNBA Twitter? Okay, so somebody screenshotted this. It says, under the current WNBA CBA, once a team submits its playoff roster at the end of the regular season, it's essentially locked in for the postseason. The league's hardship and 7-day contract rules end when the regular season does. So a team can't sign a replacement player or pick up someone off the street once the playoffs begin. The only flexibility is if the team already has someone under contract but inactive, such as on maternity leave, suspension, or the injury list, in which case that player can be activated to replace an injured player. Otherwise, the team simply has to play shorthanded because there's no mechanism to add new players during the playoffs without a rare league-approved exception. So that's going around. On top of today, there's, video of Caitlin Clark working out at Gamebridge. Can you clear this up? Is there in any world where Caitlin could come back during these playoffs?
First of all, she's not returning. Listen, she is not returning, period. Now, let's go to what you just read. First of all, I don't know where that's from. I tried to Google it, use AI. I could not find where that was from. I also went to the WNBA collective bargaining agreement, saw no such thing that existed. And then on top of that, the reality is she's not in a position to play. I posted the video down in Atlanta, and I strategically saved that to after Game 3. That was 5 hours till before Game 3, and I'm like, look, Caitlin, she's not going to play. This isn't a return. Let's hold this, and the focus should be on this game in these players. And then absolutely going to put that out because fans want to see it. They want to see any glimpse of what Caitlin's doing. And I thought I saw there, and then again in the video, she was still favoring that left ankle. She was not running completely smooth. Now, given it's early in the morning, that was like the first 10 minutes of shoot around. Shot it well, but she's been able to shoot through all of this over the last several months. So simple answer here is she is not returning. Her health is not there where she could return. And my understanding on that is it would not apply. I don't know what that is. So I guess I don't know how to respond to it when I don't know where that came from. But I like you, I have seen that all over social media. And my biggest frustration, Rachel, in all of this, and maybe this season, is how there's so many skeptics. It's everybody's questioning. It's all the conspiracy theories. I'll literally put out that video and tag to my story where I reveal here's exactly why she cannot return. And I guess we should discuss that here. She's not on the active list, which, by the way, I'll admit, I did not realize this was a thing in the WNBA, that they had to have an active list going into the postseason. It's nothing any teams publicize. It's nothing the league either shares with us. And maybe that's something for a bigger conversation. Maybe going into the playoffs, the league should present that.
Yeah, so explain that really quick. So it's basically a team submitting their active roster for playoffs. correct?
Yep. That's
And
exactly right.
the NBA does not have to do that.
I believe the NBA does.
They both do it.
Yes.
Because I mean, we've never like, and I've
This has
been
never
covering
been a
the
talking point. You're
no, it
exactly right.
hasn't. So I've been covering the NBA also for the past decade, and it's like we've never dove this far into can a player return or not until
None.
Caitlin.
Not at
Yeah.
all. And coming up in a month when right before the regular season, opening day rosters are due, I think 2 days beforehand. And we'll get an email with the full active list for the teams going to the regular season. The difference with that is you could easily change it going from game 1 to game 2 or whatever. So that was new, and that was the new information that we put out. And then this has been circulating. It just feels like no matter what is out there, no matter what reporting is there, there's all kinds of skeptics and people that are not in a good way, because I think that good debate is there, but just the theories about things. When I'm telling you, look, it's not this way or it's not that. That's been the most frustrating thing to me this season for sure.
So this ankle injury, you were the first one who broke that news about the bone bruise. And you reported it 2 weeks after it happened. Now, before you reported it, because I have also been one, like I've been very curious about this injury, and I've been wondering, why can't we get more information about it? Now, I also know, and like my husband played in the NBA for many seasons, like I know a lot of the backside of what goes on too, and a lot of teams like to keep things in-house, and especially if it's a star player, whatnot. So there's a fine balance of figuring out what's going on and also respecting and understanding, like they're going to keep some things close. You reported this 2 weeks after, but we saw something on the sideline, and I was live for the game where I don't remember which coach it was.
On January.
Yeah, so Coach January stepped on what looked like just Caitlin's heel, and she winced and whatever, and I was like, that was weird. And then I didn't know. I was like, maybe she has flip-flops on and it just hurt her toe, because the reaction was so big to what you would think of just, okay, just stepping on someone's sneaker. You wouldn't be in that much pain. Then you report it. Did you know about the injury 2 weeks prior when it actually happened, or did you not find out about it until you came out with that story?
So I saw that as well. And that's when that sparked something for me, right? Okay, what is this? This is odd. Something's off here. Exactly. Same instincts that you just said. And I got it back from one source, some info. But with anything, especially though with a superstar, especially with Caitlin, that's not good enough for me. So I wanted to get even more. So I kept digging. And that's why it took a little bit longer, because I wanted more than just, hey, she got injured in Phoenix. Okay. Then I ultimately got it. It was her left ankle. It was doing defense. It was on one of the last sequences before her workout. So you try to add layers.
She was playing defense when she got
it was it was one of the last things they said. She was almost done. It went well, and then this happened. And then complicating it was the fact that there was so many other stories going on. You had Sydney Colson's injury, Sophie Cunningham's scare, Ari McDonald's injury. But yeah, that was kind of the explanation with the timeline and everything there. You're dead on, though. The weird step there on their first game back, I think it was 2 days later, to me was a dead giveaway.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you cleared that up, because I was confused. I was like, have they been holding on to this for 2 weeks? And like now they feel like, but that's great journalism on your point, though, because like you're like, I got to get to the bottom of this. And that's what I think us as fans, or what we see in the NBA, there's so much ruthlessness when it comes to reporting sometimes. And sometimes it's, borderline if it's even ethical or not. But you see people just like digging. And I was like, where is this? But you did that. And so I appreciate that. There was also a little bit of confusion, I feel like, between reporters, because you're someone who has stood by this ankle injury is a big reason why she's not back. And there have been other reporters who have said, no, it has nothing to do with that. So, but you're standing firm, and this bone bruise is the reason.
Yes. My understanding is, while she hadn't been able to fully test it, obviously, groin was fine a while ago. It's the ankle. And I don't think they still have complete clarity on a solution or what they're doing with that, other than easing her way back, getting all kinds of treatment. The thing I don't think fans understand is she's probably, if you classify treatment and rehab, all that work in basketball, she's probably working as hard as she has ever, because frequent massage therapists, physical therapists, athletic training staffs, all the different things that you have to do, in addition to, like she's talking about, red light therapy, hyperbaric chamber, those take hours on end. And so that's where I also feel bad for her when fans are, haven't you seen the comments on YouTube? It's like, hey, why didn't she just come back for a game? Either way, she has 8 months to rehab if something more happens. It's like, no, that's the worst thing you could say. Also have a little empathy for whatever she's going through right now from a physical, but also mental standpoint, because this is all brand new to her. So yeah, this is a great challenge. But to your point, yes, it is. It's the ankle. And you could see that even in that video, as she was kind of, I don't know if hobbled around was kind of the right phrase, but she was not moving seamlessly, easily, as you would expect and have we seen before.
Yeah, I mean, there's a thing with injuries, like you have to be able to trust your body again, too. And it's like, and again, I have firsthand knowledge of a lot of this stuff because of my husband. He fully ruptured his patellar tendon, which is one of the worst injuries that you can have. And we saw a lot of setbacks. It was when he was this close, and then something, and again, it's very similar to what happened in Caitlin. One of his setbacks happened at the very last dunk of practice, you know what I mean? And then something else. And that's why I was even one of the people 2 months ago. I said, you guys, I don't think it's smart for her to come back this season. And a lot of people were frustrated with me for saying that. And I'm like, I'm not saying this because I don't want to see her. All of us want to see her on the court. But you have to protect your body, because setbacks can compound into other things. And so I'm glad that you set the record straight here. I mean, for everybody watching, we're not going to see her back. It's for her. She is working hard. You see, like she wants to be back out there. She's working hard, and hopefully, this ankle is just something that just takes some time, and it's not something that, goes into something else. But your hip, knee, and your ankle are all connected. So you got to be careful when any
That's what
one
I was
of
going to
those.
say. The whole kinetic chain, I think, is what it's called, right? And so we started with that left leg injury, which was very vague to start the preseason. Remember, the first week of training camp, then the quad, then you go to the right side, then you go to the left with the ankle. It's all related, as you know, as an athlete. Like one thing leads to the next, and that's why, to your point, you cannot rush back, because you'll be overcompensating in some area of your body.
With all these injuries with the fever, obviously Caitlin being super devastating, but was there any other injury that you felt like was one of the biggest blows for this team, that you could just feel their energy be?
Yeah, probably Sophie Cunningham.
Again? Okay.
I think she's the energy bug off the bench, the Energizer Bunny. Still the most vocal player out there. It's so fitting that she has a podcast, because, to her point, she can't shut up. And we appreciate that in the media for sure. I think that one was maybe the most devastating, because in a time when players keep going down, you need that pick me up, and she was versatile, right? She was playing on the wing, then she had to play point guard. As a whole, I would say just the fact that it was one point guard after the other was deflating for this group, because, I mean, point guard is everything, the quarterback on the court. So that was tough, too, that it was so similar in the position.
Yeah. You do see them on the bench, though. You see Sophie, and then there was also this really cool moment with Sid and Kelsey last game as well, where you kind of see Sid's leadership come out a little bit after, obviously, the big blowout in Vegas. Who have you noticed who is kind of, despite their injury, is she someone else who is also vocal with this team?
Yeah, Sid's been fantastic. That's a player, for example, I'm trying to get an interview with, but because she's injured. And here's another thing we should clarify, because a lot of people are not aware. When you are injured, it is not mandatory for you to do interviews. Therefore, that's why people are like, why don't you go ask Caitlin? Why don't you go interview? She doesn't have to do any of these interviews. And quite frankly, if I was in her position, I have nothing to say. I'm frustrated. I got nothing to add here. So that's why any of those haven't talked. I would certainly love to talk to all those injured players and talk about that situation. But yeah, I think Sophie and Sydney in particular have been fantastic. I mean, at home fever games, I have my binoculars there looking down on the huddles, and you see Sydney getting them going, or Caitlin drawing something up in particular, while the coaches meet out right beforehand. And so I think that's been hugely impactful for Sydney in a way for them to to feel like they're still contributing, because I think that's one of the hardest things when a player is sidelined is it's isolating. It's lonely and it's helpless. You feel like you're letting your team down. You feel like you can't help in any capacity. And so I think that's why you see Caitlin stick to her routine, whether it's hugging Aaliyah Boston pregame. Now she's hugging all of her teammates pregame, giving them kind of a nice little, here we go. I thought it was also cool. Caitlin is wearing the black Air Force Ones. I noticed last game, Rachel, that she got the entire staff and players that don't have other contracts, Air Force Ones. So they're leaning into all these things. They're having fun. And again, to me, that's Caitlin finding other ways to lean into something and contribute right now when she can't on the court.
I mean, that's been one of the most impressive things to me about this team. Obviously, they've just been so resilient and they've had setback after setback. And I remember making a TikTok. I was like, at what point do you just tank? Because I'm like, this has to be in the locker room. It has to be like, why us? Like, what's going on? But they have just stuck together. And truly, for them even making it to the semifinals, it's everybody is the reason that they're there. It's not just the players who are on the court. I don't care if they played 5 games, if they played, that whole group is the reason. And so hopefully they all realize that as well. Even if they're sidelined for the rest of the season, like them just being vocal, clapping, wearing the forces, whatever it is still adding to this team and helping them, possibly make the finals. I think it's possible, which would be so wild. Wild.
The bench mob, the fact that they're leaning into the bench mob, and hilarious that Caitlin's getting fined for that, by the way. And by the way, that's another thing that I have a criticism with the league is if we're going to be a professional league, we need to announce fines. You need to make these public just like you do in the NBA, just like you do in the NFL. I think the reason maybe they don't want to do that is because the fines are so small. And a player like Caitlin, like Sophie Cunningham joke, oh my goodness, I got to start a GoFundMe. This is going to really break Caitlin here. But yeah, really since the first month of the season, remember that first month was rocky and very difficult from Caitlin's injury. So Cunningham's tweaking her ankle down there in Atlanta. I feel like there was maybe one other. And then
I think Sid had something small also where There was something where like
Kelsey Mitchell had the broken finger that she still hasn't gotten fixed.
She had like her,
which is it's all the more impressive the fact that she was like 3rd leading scorer and a finalist for MVP, given how painful that is. I hope now maybe she won't go overseas this offseason. She can get that fixed. She can rest and heal her body because I can't imagine what she's feeling like. Certainly what Lexi Hall is feeling like, and you talk about how deflating it has to be. Even last game. Before the game, I could tell something was off at shoot-around. And again, this is why I like being there. It's why I lean on those instincts. And I could see Lexi was a little stiff. And she was wearing that heat wrap around her waist. We've seen Caitlin do it. Pacer fans see Tyrese Halliburton doing it. So it's not a red flag, but it's certainly notable. And then she comes over and talks to us looking a little stiff. And I asked her about, the physicality and how the wear and tear is caught up with you. One of the telltales to me so many times of these players, and that's why my post-game video, I like the wide shot where you get all 3 of them, because just watch the other faces and how they react to certain things. Excuse me. And in this case, Lexi was like, how much do I want to say here? Because in the playoffs, you don't want to reveal how you're struggling or whatever, but also the reality is she was not feeling great, and then she was added to the injury report. So it all made sense.
Yeah, I mean, she's somebody who sacrifices her body every single game. And the amount of screens that she gets run off of this series has just been insane. And I mean, the officiating, we can't get fined. It's been a hot topic of conversation this entire season. And it's not just the Fever either. It's across the league, just the inconsistencies for it. I do actually want to talk about, though, Kelsey Mitchell, because that's somebody that you've been covering for much longer than these past 2 seasons. How have you seen Kelsey's growth?
Yeah, I think going into this season, something felt different in a good way. I think last year was incredibly tough for her with her father passing away like 2 months before the season. That really weighed on her throughout the year. In particular, I remember during the Olympic break, all of them were talking about, I can't wait for rest. I can't wait for a vacation, time on the practice court. Kelsey didn't say any of that. And she's a true hooper. She loves hoops. But what she was talking about. I can't wait to get time for my mental, to be back in Ohio with family, to visit some people that I need to visit. That was her thing. Now, coming into this season, much different. I thought she was a lot more confident. I think she was a lot more comfortable. She knew exactly what to expect with this new era of the Fever into the WNBA, because it was shell-shocking, I think, to so many of them last year and even this year. I mean, DeWanna Bonner, after her first game, talking about like she was still in awe, like she got chills, like this was odd and different to her. And so this is not normal for these players. And so for Kelsey, I think I've seen a lot of growth from her. We knew she could score. We know she can get to the basket, but I think her defense has really taken another level. And then in particular, in the last month or two, really since the trifecta of injuries in Phoenix, I think she's been using her voice a lot more. She was very much a lead by example, but even her, she'll speak up more in huddles that I see, or maybe at shoot around will put her arm around a player or whatever. Again, not a loud person whatsoever. The most opposite of Sydney Colson and Sophie Cunningham that there is. But she's the veteran. She's the highest paid player. And I think she recognizes, one, I don't want to waste any of these opportunities. But two, I got to step up here. And she has a great deal. And so it's been great and fun for me to see her not only get national recognition, but also in the conversation for MVP, which was absolutely warranted.
For sure warranted. She's someone that impresses me because she does not lose her focus. Like every game, she is so locked in. She's not easily rattled. And the team needs that through all of the craziness that has just been happening. And she's really stepped into that role. I also want to ask you about Coach Stephanie White, because she stepped into a whirlwind of a season as well. Nothing that she was expecting. And the list goes on and on of all of the things. But she's taken a lot of heat from fans also this season, and people questioning her coaching ability, or what is she doing? And what have you noticed from Coach Steph White just at practice, her mental, her leadership with this team? Is there anything that stands out, anything that she does with the team that has impressed you this season?
Yeah, I think initially early on in this season, it was how she empowered her assistant coaches, because I don't think you see that certainly with a lot of head coaches at all. I've noticed Rick Carlisle has done that quite a bit since his return also with the Pacers. That's why, for example, when they need an offensive play, Austin Kelly will be the one drawing it up in the huddle. She's right there. Defensively, that's where Breon January's voice is massive. And so that's significant. That was early on in the season. I think after the first month, what really stood out to me was how she kept everything inside. How she deleted social media from her phone. She was just like on one of the platforms, and then she was like, even that was too much. And I think that's so healthy. It's unfortunate they've had to do that. I've even had to do that. I used to reply to like every comment on YouTube. And then I felt the same way, Rachel. I don't know about you, but it was just exhausting, all the questioning and conspiracy theories that I'm like, I told you the answers. I don't know what more you want. But anyway, with Steph, I think she's really leaned into everybody's best attributes. And I think sometimes that's overlooked, or you try to shape the player to them rather than just say, hey, do what you do best. Now let's fix this, or maybe not do that. But I think Odyssey Sims is your perfect example. You maybe need to accept 2 turnovers per game, but how many times is she going to get to the basket, especially quickly in transition, or get to the hoop, make those layups, or kick it out for an open corner 3? Like, it's been remarkable.
Her court vision has improved a lot, even in the playoffs. I've been so impressed with Odyssey Sims. Like, we've been joking that we're an Odyssey Sims fan page over here, because she's stepped up so big. She really has.
Like, how she and now Ari McDonald, like, they were not in the league. These were hardship players they brought in. And it goes back to what I've said all the time. Opportunity and fit are everything. It's so often why you see, I think, top draft picks fizzle out. Maybe they're not in a good environment. Maybe it's a city that's not healthy or good for them. They move environments, get infrastructure that is needed, in a support system, which is important. And I think also then the optimism, the positivity that surrounds this team has lifted all of them up, whether it's aerial powers coming in, and that energy being great energy. And so I think, if anything, maybe what they've learned and can now tap into even more is fit in the right pieces much more than talent. You need talent, but it's got to fit together at the right puzzle piece to make a run like this. And so, yeah, I thought there was a lot of unfair criticism of Steph and the coaching staff so early in the season. And quite frankly, I don't think we can take too much out of this season in terms of coaching and what she wanted to do and what it looked like, because we never really had the opportunity to see that. When Caitlin is in and out of the lineup, when other players are out, I don't think we've gotten much look at what maybe her offense and that will look like in future years.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a couple moments that she's teared up in the locker room too, and we've seen more of that as the season went on. And I think the first time, like you mentioned, was Sophie's injury. It was after that game, and I think that she just felt that huge blow, as did the whole team. But we saw it like in playoffs. She's just like, I just can't. She gives it back to the team. Like, I can't believe you guys did this. This is really cool, and we have more to go. So. It also seems like a lot of the players have mad respect for her. Like, you've seen Caitlin tweet things, post things about Coach Steph. You've seen a lot of players do that. So I think with the Fever fandom, it's with any fandom, the more eyeballs you're gonna like. Look at Knicks and Celtics fandom. I would argue their fandoms way more toxic than Fever fandom. It's just that in the WNBA, there's such a huge influx of fans that are on one team only that I think it's put under this spotlight. But I feel like, in a sense, for me, because I've been covering the NBA, this is kind of normal to see these kind of conversations and things. But I also want to get your perspective on the difference between covering the W and the NBA.
Yeah. I don't know where to begin with that. I think
it's different.
For sure.
I didn't realize how different it was going to be until I stepped into this world. I was like, wait a second.
For sure. For me, it's on a lot of levels, from not announcing fines that are frustrating to not putting out officials 9 a.m. the day of a playoff game. Like, those are little things that I think make a big difference in how we cover a league. I think one of the challenges is so many of, and this really speaks probably to a media thing, is so many of the people covering the league, unfortunately, that like it's a part-time job. And so to go back maybe to what last year with Caitlin, the challenge was she was talking 3 times on game day. Talk at shoot around, talk pregame, and then obviously talk postgame. And she wanted to talk ideally at shoot around, not disrupt her pregame routine, which I would too. That totally makes sense. But the reality is most media can't get there at morning shoot around. And so to get more coverage, you need her to talk pregame. And so one of the many things that is new last year, middle of the last season, is there's a couple players on each team that are exempt from shoot around media and are only available pregame with all that. And yeah, there's just... It is very different. I don't even know where to go with all that, because there's just so many differences when it comes to covering the league from a PR standpoint and media standpoint.
Well, there's also this weird thing that I realize, like, if you talk about one player, then you also got to mention that all these other players are also great too.
Yeah.
Or it's kind of, and if you don't do that, then there's something else that you're like an agenda that you're trying to push. And I think that that's what I've kind of noticed in the W. Like, you can't just kind of be honest, because a lot of times, even with my critique, and I'm sure yours as well, we're not critiquing players on their personalities or anything personal. It's strictly basketball when you're reporting or when you're talking about certain things. And the kind of comments that I will get or see from W takes are very different from if I make a bold NBA take. It's like, oh, she doesn't know ball, or how could you say that, or this player is better. The W side, it's like, I'm the worst person.
You're piling on. Why are you so critical? It's like, the criticism is
I'm
good.
spreading hate. I get that a lot. I'm spreading hate and negativity. Okay. Which also, by the way, I'm very desensitized. I will not be deleting my social media. I have no issue reading. I kind of giggle when I read the hate stuff. Like, it is what it is. Unless it gets to the point where, like, I feel like someone's going to pull up at my house. Then it gets a little sticky, but otherwise, I've been kind of floored by the differences. So
no, so am I. And yeah, I think that is one of the biggest ones is if you're trying to critique or have an actual basketball thought on him. Some are like, no, you need to prop it up. You need to support everyone. It's like, no, we're there to cover them in a fair manner. And so as much as I want to shower praise, if a critical point or a bad review from the officials or a bad challenge by a head coach was made, we need to call it out.
For sure. Okay, I don't want to keep you too long because I know you have more fever stuff to cover today, but I did ask my Courtside Club members if they had any questions for you, and we got some good ones. So if you're down to answer some of those.
Yes, and by the way, I did think of you as we were setting this up. In Las Vegas, they have something called the Courtside Club. So I should send you that photo. I took a photo of it.
You know what? I have a lot of trademarks though for Courtside Club, and I'm gonna need to start activating some of them.
Good for you. Hope you have this one.
Yeah, I don't know if I have them in arenas, but there's a couple places that have courtside clubs, and I'm like, or maybe there's a partnership down the way. We don't have to get in a trademark war. We can just, but that's cool.
like it.
Anyway, okay, so members, we have DeMita, and she said, how did Stephanie White have to adjust her coaching style and strategies to address so many players being injured? For example, without the original core team, did the team cohesion matter more? So what have you noticed about her adjusting coaching styles with these injuries?
Yeah, it's funny to think back maybe that first month after all the injuries. Like we were seeing a lot of zone. Like they were mixing and matching and trying to experiment and figure out what needed to be done. I don't think that was very successful, and I don't think that's why we've seen it. But that's literally what you're trying to do as a coach is figure it out on the fly there. Right away, they tried to simplify everything. I mean, when you bring in your point guard, who's in Turkey 2 days earlier, that complicates a little bit. She's really emphasized screening even more to try to create actions, to try to get those players open, especially with the physicality that is being allowed. But I think it's just been small tweaks and simplifying more than anything. And so the counter to that too means they're not getting into the full extent of their offense and what they're trying to do, trying to play more random, play faster, and get out when the defense can't be set.
And probably, like you said earlier, just leaning into everyone's individual strengths because she's just gotten all these new players. So she's like, okay, how can we figure out how to utilize you to your best ability?
And it takes her some time. She had to go back and watch film of some of these players to become even more familiar with their game. Like that's a challenge in its own right while you're trying to prepare for 3 or 4 opponents in a week.
For sure. Okay, so we have VG Skittles. He said, I'd like to know if he has ever known something that he wasn't supposed to / allowed to report.
I would say yes, but it doesn't matter. I think back to several years ago. It doesn't even matter at this point. But the Pacers decided to fly day of to a game. Now, typically, they always go the day before. The Pacers had their reason, and I was asked by the team, can you not do this from a security standpoint? There's a reason we're not doing this. And so, look, I'm not going to put anybody in jeopardy for a little tidbit in a story. So from that standpoint, yes, but nothing of consequence, nothing that's impactful or that truly matters in my mind.
Did they win that game?
I don't even
Do you
remember.
It happens in, I ask because they do that sometimes in EuroLeague, like in overseas leagues. They fly the same day, like on Dre's team. And I was like, this seems wild. And they almost lost every single time they did that because the players were not ready. So then it would have consequence. But again, that comes into like the ethical side of journalism as well. Like you never want to put players in a situation where their safety is of concern. Like that's not your goal in your reporting, I would assume.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
But the reality is certain things like that have no meaning on the bat. Now, actually, it might have been relevant if they got pounded or there was a fight or something. Because
someone got injured because they didn't have enough adequate time to.
100%. And so then you would include it. But yeah, there's very few instances of that ever happening for sure.
Okay, so this one is from Mike Wiseman. He said maybe ask him to clear up what his intentions were or how he thought it would be beneficial to the Fever when he stated his infamous article. I know you got a lot of slack for this. A portion of CC fans are from the dark side. Not that his statement isn't true, but what did he expect to accomplish with saying that?
For one, I thought, there's several different layers to this. Okay. One, it was if you're using those language, which people like to do, it was not saying those fans are on the dark side. It's that leads to darkness. That negativity can end up being the darkness that is a cloud over the team, is my point there. At the time of the writing, I thought it was all of us know it, right? Like there's that segment of fans. And what I hate is that I mentioned her name, because it really isn't her fans. It's a segment that tries to use her name and her popularity. But it was really just that one sentence. And I laughed because it was in a story that, if anything, was just propping up everybody. If I remember right, it was like, look at what Sophie Cunningham has done. Look at what Sydney Colson has done. This team has been incredible, rallying around all the different stuff. And then it was also talking about, I forget, there was a second paragraph, which is where this was included. I think it was talking about, with all these injuries, you don't have practice players, or you don't have enough people to practice, so you're really leaning in on practice, whatever, it doesn't matter. So yes, I hate the fact, looking back on it, that I included that one like 5-word sentence,
Right.
because it put everybody in one big bucket, when the reality is it's a terribly small sample size. They're just very loud. And all that negativity, like we were talking about on social media, most of fans are phenomenal. Most of them are engaging. They follow along. They're trying to learn. They just want updates on her and the team, which I totally understand. So yeah, that would definitely be a sentence that I would love a do-over on. The whole point of the story in that graph and them rallying around each other, I thought was incredibly true. It's just a lot of people had an issue with that sentence, whereas I think if you also follow along with this team and such, you know what I was getting at. I just should have been more expressly clear.
I think there is a sensitivity with Fever fans, Caitlin Clark fans, because from big mainstream media, they have definitely labeled the entire group as that. And so I think that there's just a sensitivity, because some fans do get tired, because a lot of fans are there for the basketball first. They're not there for all the extracurriculars. And so when they hear over and over on these big media outlets, though, that Fever fans are so toxic, or, oh, we're going to launch an investigation because something was going on. And then it gets labeled this whole fan group, and you're constantly seeing that. And then I think, even if it was, I'm glad that you cleared it up here, because it seems like you love Fever fans, and I wholeheartedly think that you do. That one sentence, I think, just gets amplified on social media. And so people are like, dang, like you're one of us, Scott. Why would you say that? Because we're getting all of this. But again, this is the power of social media. Sometimes we don't even have the source. Going back to the beginning of this chat where we had this whole paragraph, we don't even know where it came from.
No clue. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I'm glad they're able to clear that up, because I didn't take it like that. But I can understand sensitivities also. But I also think there's a lot of growing pains in the W regardless with fandom. I think we're going to see some of this stuff that's like really crazy and weird toxicity kind of level out as more and more fans come in with basketball. So
yeah, no, I totally agree there. And it's been fun to see this audience grow into incredible numbers, and then even more, obviously, with TV and interest level and such when Caitlin is out there. I mean, her being out impacts everybody, from TV to interest level to even just engagement, me tweeting during the games. Like, there used to be way more. It's probably 10% of what it was just because this one player is not out there in uniform.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a lot of us are looking forward to seeing her back. This is a little side note. Have you heard anything about off-season plans for her at all?
Nothing else beyond like USA Basketball. I think there's some kind of training camp or something there, but I would be stunned.
You know when that is?
I have not. No, I don't.
Okay.
But I'm not expecting her to go overseas. I would be shocked if she did Unrivaled. I think this off season needs to just be about getting healthy. And then the other thing I would say is I think she needs to find somewhere safe, comfortable for her and mix in and play some basketball. I don't know if that's could you do it with the Butler men's team? Maybe you certainly could do it with the Butler women's team where she's comfortable. I mean, do you go back, Rachel, to Iowa for a month? I think her being back around a team in an environment that's not like there to post it on social media, but to allow her to play against contact, to get shots up and such, allowing her to play some meaningful basketball for the first time in months would be significant heading into next year.
I feel the same way. I suggested she just does her own pro runs like the NBA players do, like a lot of NBA trainers
Yeah.
do pro runs. And Caitlin could easily get a group of girls together, like pro players, any overseas players, friends who she used to play with at Iowa. It would be so easy. But I'm with you on that. She'll definitely play 5v5 somewhere. I definitely don't see her going overseas. I don't think they have the bandwidth to take care of her the way
Also,
that
just
she
the
would.
mental in all
Yeah, I
this.
don't see that at
I
all.
think she needs to experience and be back out there. Like, this is her love. She's like 23. To
Yeah.
have this taken from her has got to be just incredibly challenging.
Yeah. Okay, last question for you, and I'll let you run.
Sure.
Patrick Littledew, he said this team seems to have a real togetherness in the locker room. Who is the team leader behind the scenes? I know we talked about Kelsey, we talked about Sophie, we talked about Sid. Give us somebody else who's maybe a leader that we wouldn't expect.
I'd say Aaliyah. I'd probably throw in that
Okay.
mix. I mean, what she has done, and she's not afraid to speak out or speak up. She's obviously been an all-star all 3 of her years and continues to get better. The thing I've liked really about her is she seems like she's playing with an attitude in a good way this postseason. She's got an edge. She's got a feistiness to her that I thought was always missing, actually. And so to see her fight, and the most telling thing to me about all this, Rachel, is she's doing it against what I would assume are friends, Gamecocks, right? With
Yeah.
Asia
Even
Wilson, for
Asia,
example,
yeah.
and even last series against Atlanta as well. These players that she probably has a relationship with Dawn Staley in South Carolina, she is battling and like she is giving them looks. She's battling, so I think that's probably contagious. But from a team standpoint, I'd say Sydney and Sophie seem to be the most vocal and outspoken with this group, though.
Cool. Lastly, prediction for game 3 in Gamebridge tomorrow.
Yeah, we need to see how Lexi's doing, because I'm not sure this team can take another hit, literally, with all of this. I think Kelsey will bounce back. I think the coaching staff will find some ways to better utilize her. And then you've been here. I think you were at the first game or something. Like, this crowd is it's phenomenal. And so they're probably worth a good 4 or 5 points and provide that energy lift that this team probably needs, both physically and emotionally, what they have been through and trying to get to the finish line here. So I think it'll be a physical, obviously. I'm in so much, why I'm hesitant to say is we don't know the officials. And the sad part is, based on the officiating, I can have a good idea of how the game will be called and therefore how the game will react. I did not like the crew at all in the last game. I was stunned by those 3 being included. And what fans may not realize is the individual who Fever don't like the most was the alternate official of that game. Marcy,
Oh, wow.
remember they had issues with, I think, one of the last regular season games. She was the alternate official in that game, but it did not obviously get to that point. But
Yeah, is there like a Scott Foster equivalent for the W? You know, the great extender?
not really. Oh, no. Yeah, from that standpoint, no. And maybe that's an area of growth.
We'll figure that out. We'll figure out
Right,
which ref
they'll
that
get
is
there
gonna
here in
be.
a couple of years.
Yeah.
I would say there's probably 3 or 4 officials, I believe, that are well known in the WNBA. But the challenge is the best ones, they lose to like the NBA. And so that's the reason why that needs to be an area that grows as well, because it's kind of like a minor league system for that. Is once they're good there, let's move them up with the G League and NBA. And so a lot of the officials also cross over and do G League during the season.
Yeah. Well, they got to pay them more too, along with the players. I think they need to pay the refs more too, so they can get some high quality refs in there. Scott, we'll have to have you back on so we can cover more topics. There's so much. I'm expecting a close game for game 3, and we will be locked in. Let everybody know where they can find you on all your socials and YouTube and such.
Yeah, just at Scott Agness on all those. Twitter I'm most active on, and then Instagram, YouTube, obviously, and then fieldhousefiles.com, where I cover Fever, Pacers, and the boom of the G League. So all the Indiana teams under that one roof.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I thought this was great. This was
Yeah,
really
really
great.
enjoyed it. Appreciate your coverage as well, because I think you do a nice job on here of providing the necessary context from a basketball standpoint about what's going on and maybe how fans should think about a situation.
Thanks, Scott. I appreciate that.